Something led you here today, and it wasn't accidental. Maybe you've been scrolling past countless videos, countless messages, countless voices telling you to be patient, to trust the process, to wait on God. And yet the ache is still there, quiet but persistent, whispering that everyone else seems to be moving forward while you remain exactly where you are. Maybe you've watched people you grew up with walk down aisles, hold babies, build homes, and you've smiled genuinely for them while privately wondering why your season hasn't come yet. Maybe you've even questioned yourself, questioned your worth, questioned whether God somehow forgot about you in the middle of answering everyone else's prayers. If any of that resonates, stop right there. Because what you're about to hear isn't just another motivational message dressed up in spiritual language. This is something different. This is a direct answer to a question your heart has been carrying for far longer than you'd probably care to admit. Stay with this message from beginning to end, because what God is revealing in these next few minutes could be the very thing that finally brings peace to the question you've been asking for years, and the clarity you didn't even know you were missing.
Here's the truth that most people aren't bold enough to say out loud. The fact that you haven't married yet isn't a flaw in your story. It's actually one of the most significant signs that God has placed His hand on your life in a way that goes far deeper than most people will ever experience. The Bible has never operated on the world's schedule. From the very beginning, God's greatest stories have always unfolded in the waiting, in the wilderness, in the silence, in the seasons that looked like nothing was happening while everything was actually being prepared. There's something quietly profound about the way God works in the lives of those He's set apart. While the rest of the world rushes headlong into relationships, chasing connection like it's the finish line, the chosen ones find themselves on a completely different kind of journey. It's not that love isn't available to them, it's that something deeper is being built first. Before marriage ever enters the picture, there's an interior work that has to happen, a sacred process of refinement that can't be skipped, can't be rushed, and certainly can't be shortcut. The Bible itself is filled with stories of people who were called to wait, to be shaped in silence before stepping into their purpose. Think of David tending sheep in obscurity before he ever wore a crown. Think of Joseph in the pit before the palace. The chosen ones carry that same blueprint in their souls. Preparation always precedes the promise. And that preparation, more often than not, begins with the self. God doesn't hand someone a kingdom-level love before they've learned how to govern their own heart. That's just not how spirituality works. The years that feel like loneliness are rarely what they appear to be on the surface. For the chosen ones, those quiet seasons of solitude aren't a sign that something is wrong. They're a sign that something sacred is underway. It's during these stretches that discipline gets forged. Real discipline. Not the kind that looks good on the outside but crumbles under pressure, but the kind that comes from sitting with discomfort, choosing wisely when no one's watching, and learning to say no to things that feel good but lead nowhere. Self-love, too, not the shallow version the world sells, but the kind that's anchored deep in the soul, is cultivated in these in-between seasons. The chosen ones learn to find wholeness within themselves long before they ever seek it in another person. They begin to understand that God's design for marriage was never two broken halves trying to complete each other, but two whole people choosing to walk together. And you simply can't get there without first doing the work on the inside. What makes this process even more significant is the healing that takes place beneath the surface. Old wounds don't just disappear because time passes. They either get addressed or they get carried into every future relationship like invisible baggage. The chosen ones are called to face what others run from, the heartbreaks that left marks, the disappointments that quietly shaped their expectations, the pain they perhaps never fully named or processed. This isn't easy work. It's actually some of the hardest work a person can do. But it's absolutely necessary. Because a marriage built on unhealed ground is a marriage that will eventually shake. God, in His wisdom, protects the chosen ones from entering covenants they aren't yet equipped to honor. Every moment of solitude, every difficult season, every prayer whispered in the dark is quietly doing something, strengthening the foundation, deepening the roots, preparing the soil for a love that's built to last. There's a reason some people can't seem to settle, no matter how hard they try. They meet someone who checks most of the boxes, the timing seems reasonable, the connection feels real, and yet, something deep inside them won't let them move forward. It's not fear, and it's not unrealistic expectations. It's something far more intentional than that. The chosen ones carry within them a divine assignment that was written long before they took their first breath, and that assignment doesn't pause for convenience. God doesn't just call people to marriage, He calls them to purpose first. And for those who've been set apart, that purpose is often so significant, so layered, so far-reaching, that it requires their full attention before a partner ever enters the scene. Spirituality at this level isn't just a personal experience. It becomes a lifestyle, a lens, a calling that shapes every single decision, including the decision of who to love and when. The Bible makes it clear that there are seasons for everything, and for the chosen ones, the season of mission almost always comes before the season of marriage. What that mission looks like will vary from person to person, but the weight of it is something every chosen one recognizes. For some, it's about awakening the people around them, speaking truth into spaces that have been darkened by confusion, offering clarity where there's been chaos. For others, it's about healing what's been broken across generations, becoming the turning point in a family line that's carried pain for far too long. And for others still, it's about building something. A legacy, a body of work, a spiritual contribution that will outlive them. Whatever form it takes, the mission demands energy. It demands focus. It demands the kind of single-minded devotion that a premature relationship could easily fracture. God isn't being cruel when He delays love for the chosen ones. He's being strategic. He's protecting the mission from being diluted before it's had the chance to fully take root. A partner who arrives too early, before both people are ready, doesn't just slow things down. They can unintentionally redirect a calling that was meant to change lives. And here's what makes God's design so breathtaking. He doesn't just eventually send a partner, He sends the right one. Not someone who competes with the mission, but someone who completes it. The chosen ones don't just get a spouse, they get a co-laborer, someone whose own calling intertwines so naturally with theirs that the union itself becomes a force. That's what sets a God-ordained marriage apart from every other relationship the chosen one might have encountered along the way. Every connection that didn't work out, every almost relationship that fizzled, every door that quietly closed, none of it was wasted. It was all protective. It was all purposeful. The Bible says in Jeremiah 29 verse 11 that God's plans are to prosper and not to harm, to give a future and a hope. For the chosen ones, that future isn't just a personal dream, it's a kingdom assignment, and the partner God has prepared is someone worthy of walking right into the middle of it. There's a gift that comes with being chosen that isn't always easy to explain, and honestly, it isn't always easy to carry. It's the ability to sense what others simply don't. Where most people take things at face value, the chosen ones read between the lines almost instinctively. They walk into a room and feel the energy before a single word is spoken. They sit across from someone who says all the right things, and yet, somewhere deep in their spirit, something quietly signals that the surface doesn't match what's underneath. This isn't paranoia, and it isn't perfectionism. It's discernment, one of the most powerful spiritual gifts God places in the hearts of those He's set apart. The Bible speaks of it as the ability to test the spirits, to distinguish between what is genuine and what is counterfeit. And for the chosen ones, this gift operates almost like a second language, one their soul speaks fluently even when their mind is still trying to catch up. It's a grace, but it's also a responsibility, because once you can see clearly, you can't unsee. And that changes everything about how you approach love, connection, and ultimately, marriage. What this heightened discernment does, practically speaking, is raise the standard, not out of arrogance, but out of spiritual awareness. The chosen ones simply cannot thrive in relationships built on performance, pretense, or misalignment. They've tried, perhaps. Maybe they've sat in connections that looked good from the outside and spent the entire time feeling an inexplicable unease they couldn't quite name. That unease wasn't anxiety, it was their spirit doing its job, flagging the disconnect between what was being presented and what was actually true. Shallow conversations feel hollow to them. Relationships driven by surface-level attraction leave them emotionally starved. They're not being difficult, they're being discerning. And God designed them that way on purpose. Because the kind of marriage a chosen one is being prepared for requires a foundation of radical authenticity, and their spiritual radar exists precisely to ensure they don't settle for anything less. Every person who didn't pass that inner test wasn't a loss, they were a redirection. Here's the tension that many chosen ones quietly wrestle with, though. This gift can feel like a burden when it narrows the field so significantly. It can feel isolating to sense misalignment when everyone else around you seems perfectly content. It can feel like something is wrong with you when connection after connection just doesn't land the way it should. But nothing is wrong. In fact, everything is working exactly as God intended. The chosen ones aren't meant to connect with everyone. They're meant to connect deeply with the right one. And that person, when they finally arrive, will carry an energy that doesn't trigger the alarm. Their words will align with their character. Their spirituality will be genuine, not performed. Their presence will bring peace rather than confusion. The chosen ones will know, not just emotionally, but in that deep, unshakable place where God speaks and the soul listens. That kind of clarity is worth every season of waiting, every almost connection, and every moment of standing firm when settling would have been so much easier. There's a weight that some people carry into adulthood that has nothing to do with their own choices, and everything to do with the world they were born into. The chosen ones often come from lineages that have known pain for a very long time. Broken relationships, emotional unavailability, cycles of abandonment, patterns of dysfunction that passed quietly from one generation to the next like an inheritance nobody asked for. And while many people simply absorb these patterns and unknowingly repeat them, the chosen ones are called to something different. They're called to stop the cycle, to be the ones who look the generational wound directly in the eye, name it for what it is, and make a conscious, courageous decision to choose a different path. This is not a small assignment. In the world of spirituality, breaking what has been established over decades, sometimes centuries, requires an extraordinary level of self-awareness, emotional honesty, and spiritual fortitude. The Bible reminds us in Psalm 147 verse 3 that God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And for the chosen ones, that healing isn't just personal, it's generational, stretching backward into the past and forward into futures they'll never even see. The process of healing ancestral patterns is rarely linear, and it's almost never comfortable. It requires the chosen ones to go back into places they'd often rather leave closed, to examine the relationships they witnessed growing up, to grieve the love they deserved but didn't always receive, to forgive people who perhaps never apologized and may never fully understand the damage they caused. It means unlearning behaviors that were modeled so consistently they began to feel like personality traits rather than learned responses. It means recognizing the subtle ways old wounds show up in new situations. The flinch when someone gets too close, the self-sabotage when something good starts to grow, the deep-seated belief that love is conditional or that abandonment is inevitable. These aren't character flaws. They're echoes. And the chosen ones are called to quiet those echoes before they ever walk into a marriage covenant. Because God doesn't just want them to have a good relationship, He wants them to build something that becomes a new standard for every generation that follows. What's beautiful, even in the difficulty of this process, is the profound significance of what the chosen ones are actually building. Every therapy session, every honest prayer, every moment of choosing to respond differently than their upbringing taught them, it all accumulates into something extraordinary. Their future marriage won't just be a personal milestone. It will be a declaration, a living, breathing testimony that the cycle ended with them, that God's grace was sufficient to rewrite what generations before could not. The children they raise, the love they model, the home they create will carry a completely different spiritual DNA than what came before. And that ripple effect, though invisible in the moment, is perhaps one of the most powerful contributions a chosen one can make to the world. Marriage, in this context, becomes so much more than a union between two people. It becomes a healing event, for a family line, for a community, and in ways only God fully understands, for the broader tapestry of human history. If there's one thing that sets the chosen ones apart from everyone else in their approach to love, it's this: they've learned, sometimes through years of heartache and unanswered prayers, that God's timing isn't just different from theirs. It's better, infinitely, undeniably better. And that realization, as simple as it sounds, is one of the hardest-won truths a human heart can arrive at. The world around them moves fast. Social media paints a constant stream of engagements, weddings, and growing families, and the quiet pressure to keep up can feel almost suffocating at times. But the chosen ones carry a knowing in their spirit that refuses to be drowned out by the noise. They understand, even on the days when it's painful to understand, that a love built outside of God's timing is a love built on unstable ground. The Bible is unambiguous about this. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11 declares that He has made everything beautiful in its time. Not in our time. Not in the world's time. In His time. And for the chosen ones, that verse isn't just a comfort. It's a compass that orients everything, including the way they wait, the way they trust, and the way they believe for what hasn't yet arrived. What divine timing actually means in practical terms is that God is working on both people simultaneously and separately before He ever brings them together. While the chosen one is doing their inner work, healing their wounds, sharpening their discernment, and walking out their mission, their future partner is somewhere doing the very same thing. Two souls being refined in different places, on different timelines, moving toward a convergence that neither of them can fully orchestrate on their own. This is what makes a kingdom-aligned marriage so profoundly different from what the world typically chases. It's not just about chemistry or compatibility or even shared values, as important as those things are. It's about two people whose callings interlock, whose spirituality deepens in the presence of the other, whose union produces something greater than what either of them could ever accomplish alone. God doesn't just match hearts, He aligns destinies. And that kind of alignment can't be rushed, can't be manufactured, and absolutely cannot be forced. Every season of waiting is, in reality, a season of divine engineering happening just beyond what the human eye can see. And perhaps that's the most revolutionary thing the chosen ones come to understand, that their patience isn't passive. It's powerful. Every day they choose to trust God's plan over their own timeline, they're making a declaration of faith that has spiritual weight. Every moment they resist the urge to settle for a relationship that's almost right but not quite aligned, they're honoring the covenant God is preparing them for. Their marriage, when it finally comes, won't feel like a consolation prize for having waited too long. It will feel like the culmination of everything, every prayer, every sacrifice, every lonely night that was quietly, sovereignly being woven into something extraordinary. It will be a union rooted in wholeness, anchored in purpose, and overflowing with the kind of love that can only come from two people who chose God's way over the world's shortcuts. As Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11 so beautifully declares, He makes everything beautiful in its time. And for the chosen ones, that beauty, when it finally arrives, will be absolutely worth every moment of the wait.